Hi everybody, it's Mike Cooch. I want to thank you for joining us on the webinar today. If you could just hang tight, we do still have people joining us. We're going to give them just a couple of minutes here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So please just hang tight. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Hi everybody, we're just letting a few more people join us, and we'll get started here in just another minute or two. Thank you for your patience. Hi everybody, it's Mike Cooch. We'll get started here in just 1 minute. Thank you for your patience. Okay, let's go ahead and get rolling. Thank you everybody for joining me here today. It's Mike Cooch with Everon Technology Services, and would like to thank you for joining me here today and joining me for this presentation on small business and cloud computing. What you need to know to take advantage of cloud computing at your business. We're going to cover a fair bit of ground today, so I am going to go through this presentation without taking any questions during the presentation. However, at the end of the presentation, I will answer some of the questions that come in. Please submit your questions via the chat feature on the webinar here, and we will answer your questions at the end. And if there are any questions that I don't get to during this presentation, we'll be certainly happy to get in touch with you afterwards and follow up with answers to those questions. In addition, we will send a recording of this presentation out to you and a copy of the slides, so certainly feel free to sit back and relax, and just know that you'll get a copy so you can always review the information later. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so today we're going to cover what exactly is cloud computing. There's a lot of talk about cloud computing, but I'm not sure that everybody really knows what it is or that we have a common definition, so we're going to try and establish that today. We'll talk about what the major benefits of cloud computing are to you and your business, as well as what are the risks and trade-offs that you need to be aware of as you make some sort of investment or transition into cloud computing. Which applications and services are best for use in the cloud, and how does cloud computing save you money? And then finally, what is hybrid cloud computing? Perhaps you've heard of that. If not, we'll introduce that to you today. And what are the benefits of hybrid cloud computing? If you have any questions, again, on cloud computing in general, or technology services and how technology can best be used at your business, maybe you feel like you're not quite getting the most out of the technology that you're using today and you have questions, please feel free to contact us at any time at info info@everonit.com. That's info@everonit.com, and we'd be glad to answer any questions that we can. Okay, so cloud computing is expected to reach potentially $100 billion by the year 2014, and that's just small business spending alone. So we've probably heard a lot of buzz about cloud computing here over the last couple of years. It's been something that just started getting talked about a handful of years ago and has really taken off and really become a part of kind of the mainstream conversation of technology. I think starting with companies like Salesforce.com and then Google and some of the applications that they've rolled out, cloud has really become the buzz. And it's expected that SMB spending could reach $100 billion by 2014. So it's more than just buzz. Obviously, there's some real substance to it that is driving this conversation. And there are some real benefits, I think, particularly to small businesses that you need to be aware of. So let's first talk about what exactly is cloud computing. Again, there's lots of conversation around cloud computing, but I'm not sure that everybody really understands what cloud computing is. And so let's talk about a shared definition if we can. Now, this is a definition I got from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. I have no idea who those people are, but it sounds like a real serious group. Their definition of cloud computing is a model for enabling convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, e.g. networks, servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. That's a mouthful. I don't know about you, but that's a lot to digest for me. So what I've done is I've boiled it down to what I think are the most important points for you to know in terms of defining and understanding cloud computing. One, that it provides you with convenient on-demand access. Okay, convenient on-demand access to the services that you're looking for. Number two is that it can be very rapidly provisioned. And number three, that it requires minimal management effort to keep the applications and services that you're using up and running. To me, those are the three most important points in understanding cloud computing. Now, if you go back to this main, this definition here provided by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, you can see some other things in here that are very important. There's a shared pool of configurable computing resources. Okay? Now, what that means is that instead of having technology in your office that you are using just for your business, it means that there is a potential to access technology that's off in space someplace, right, the cloud, and access a larger pool of resources there that are configured properly to really deliver the services and applications that you're looking for without having to have your own technology investment in-house. So again, the cloud, this network, this pool of resources off in the sky someplace that allows you to have convenient on-demand access, rapid provisioning, and minimal management effort. Now, this is a game changer for small businesses, and I think one of the easiest ways to explain it is to compare it to electricity, right? Now, if you've lived in the United States your entire life, like I have pretty much, I lived over in Europe for a while, but not for very long, and certainly in a modern part of Europe. But if you've lived in any of these major countries that we've had the real benefit of economic growth and prosperity for many years now, you may not ever have realized that there was a point in time where businesses had to have their own electricity generators to operate their businesses. So before there was an electrical grid that provided electricity and electrical services to everybody in the country, essentially, businesses and homes had their own way of generating electricity. So if you can imagine every business in America at one point having a little power generator that sat, just outside of its business, that literally had cables running from it into the business, that the workers there would, use those cables to power whatever machine that they were working on there at their business. Obviously, a very, very inefficient way to get electricity out to the masses. Dangerous, expensive, required a lot of upkeep by each individual business, tons of expense associated with that. So having this major electrical grid that now services the entire country is just a huge advantage for the small businesses and consumers and the country as a whole, right? I mean, if you go to other parts of the world where those electrical grids have not really been established, you can imagine how difficult it is for businesses there to compete with businesses here in the United States and other more modernized parts of the world. Well, again, I think a real nice comparison is cloud computing, comparing it to electricity and the electrical grid. So there has been traditionally the need for small businesses to invest in their own version of the electrical generator, if you will, right? In their offices, they have their own little computing power plant. They have servers and UPS devices and network switches and all this stuff that, for the most part, a small business would rather not have and not have to put money in, right? If you could just access all of the computing resources and power that those servers are providing, but without having to actually, spend the tens of thousands of dollars to set up and maintain that network every year, then of course you would, right? I mean, every small business, for the most part, would elect to do that. Well, that's what cloud computing provides. It essentially takes all of this computing horsepower that's being produced at each individual small business, and it moves it to a consolidated place, again, out in the cloud, up in the sky someplace, that you can tap into instead of having to invest in all of that infrastructure and the management of the infrastructure yourself. So I hope that helps clarify what cloud computing is and the potential that it has to really revolutionize how we work. So what are the best applications for use in the cloud? To me, there's 4 criteria that I believe make an application really, really desirable to move to the cloud. One, that it's management intensive, right? That it requires upkeep just to keep up and running. There are lots of applications like, Exchange servers as an example, Microsoft Exchange servers, that they provide fantastic benefits in terms of your ability to email and share calendars and share contacts. It's a very, very popular application in small businesses, but it requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of time and expenses invested in keeping that application up and running. 2 is that it's accessed by users in multiple locations, right? If people in multiple locations are trying to access it, it makes just as good of sense, if not better, for those applications and those services to be hosted someplace up in the sky in a really, really well-developed co-location facility rather than being hosted in the back closet of your office. 3, that you have large amounts of data being produced and needing to be managed, right? Data is growing at an incredibly rapid rate in businesses today. It's growing faster than it ever has before. And therefore, we're using lots and lots of hard drive capacity and having to invest in new systems or new hard drives to be able to handle all the data that's being created. Well, if instead of having to invest in all of that capacity yourself, you could just tap into additional capacity in the cloud, that would be a great benefit. Number 4, that you have large swings in data in use. So again, in a business that produces lots of data or does lots of work on a seasonal basis, you may have periods of the year where you're actually quite slow and you don't really need to have all of the resources available to you, versus you have times in the year that maybe you bring on lots of temporary employees. You need to give them access to systems so that they can work. Those temporary swings, those seasonal swings may only last for a few months. So wouldn't it be great to tap into a flexible resource that provided everything you need during those temporary periods, but then you didn't have to pay for it during the slower times? So again, these are 4 criteria that I think really make things good candidates for use in the cloud. So specific examples of applications that are great in the cloud. 1, email. We already talked about Exchange databases, right? Well, email in general is a lot of work to maintain. It's pretty intensive. You have a lot of email going in and out of your computer every day. So Hosting that email yourself can be quite expensive and kind of a pain in the neck, and that's why email was one of the first services to really be moved off-site and be managed in some sort of co-location facility at least, but now being moved to being hosted and managed in the cloud. 2, databases. So databases are where you store and manipulate lots of data. Again, anything that's really data intensive makes sense in the cloud. 3, storage. Right? Again, we're producing so much data. What do you do with all of that data after you've produced it? Most people don't want to get rid of it, right? For whatever reason. It may be something that you want to access later on down the road. It may be something that's proprietary that you want to hang on to, or there may be legal reasons that you need to hang on to data if you're a healthcare professional or a legal professional or a financial professional. So again, data is growing very, very quickly. Where do you store it? The cloud is a fantastic option. Backing up your data. Right? Making a copy of your data to keep that data safe. Well, if you're making a copy and keeping it in the exact same location that you're producing it, you're obviously only minimizing some of the risk. But if something were to happen in your office, like a fire or a flood, and both your backup and your primary data are located there, you've got some problems. So backing up your data into the cloud is a fantastic option. CRM, customer relationship management software, things like Salesforce. Salesforce was probably the best known application to become a cloud application. And the reason why, again, you have a lot of people typically in multiple locations that are all contributing and creating data and accessing data from a central resource. It makes a lot of sense for that to be hosted in a facility that's really well designed for availability and uptime so that people, no matter where they're located, can access that data. Project management is another great application. Again, with project management, you oftentimes have people in multiple locations collaborating on a project that need access to data, and services and applications from some centralized location. So project management has been one of the applications that has made its way to the cloud here very quickly. So what are the major benefits for a small business to consider when they're looking at the cloud and cloud computing as an option? I think the first and foremost is that there's less hardware and software to purchase and therefore less capital investment to make by your business. So obviously in any small business, cash is king, money is very important, particularly in today's tough economy. So anything that you can do to save cash by not having to make a large upfront capital investment, but instead transitioning that investment into some sort of operating expense where you're just paying some sort of monthly fee for access is very beneficial to small businesses and very attractive. Dynamic access and billing. This kind of goes right along with it, and we talked about the seasonality of certain businesses. So, you may need 50 people to access an application or a service today, but tomorrow only need 25. With cloud computing, you can more easily turn on and off access and turn on and off the expense associated with that access. Dynamic capacity and easy upgrades. If you've ever been through the experience of doing a major upgrade to your business network, you know it can be quite expensive, time-consuming, and unfortunately, there can often be things that go wrong. So instead of having to do this big manual upgrade process of your network, cloud computing allows you to easily and dynamically access the capacity that you need so that you no longer actually have to do any upgrades on your network. You essentially just ask for more resources to be provided and they'll automatically and dynamically be provisioned. Increased security and data integrity. I don't know about you, but I think in most cases it's a safe bet to say that the Amazons and Googles and Microsofts of the world can probably create a better environment, a more secure environment, and one with higher data integrity than you can in the back closet of your office, right? They pour in billions of dollars into creating these environments where there's very, very high levels of security. There's very high levels of redundancy in terms of internet bandwidth as well as power supply. And they have the best and the brightest minds working in these data centers to make sure that everything stays up and running and stays secure. So pretty hard to compete against that. And then finally, a decreased maintenance and lower total cost of ownership. Now, again, I think that most small businesses feel this way. Hey, as little as I can spend to get the services or to get the benefits I want to get from my technology, let's do it, right? Nobody likes the fact that you go out and you buy your technology and then you have to spend a lot of money in addition to keep it working. But it's been a reality with technology, right? It's one of those things that you have to invest in managing it and maintaining it properly because it's very complicated stuff. But by taking advantage of the cloud, you can oftentimes see dramatic reductions in the amount of cost and effort it takes to maintain that technology, and therefore you can dramatically lower your total cost of ownership. I think most people don't realize that about 80% of the cost of owning technology comes from the maintenance and training and work associated with keeping the technology actually running. The technology itself that you're purchasing is actually the cheapest part of the whole equation. So by lowering those maintenance costs, you can really save a large percentage of your overall budget. All right, but as with anything, there are concerns and there are risks associated, especially with anything new, and they're certainly valid. I mean, there have been a large number of companies that have started recently with the intention of offering some sort of cloud computing product or service that have pretty quickly gone out of business, have been acquired by somebody else, had some sort of major financing challenges. All of those things certainly create risks for your business, right? The last thing that you want to do is to put all of your business applications, services, and data off into some cloud service provider's hands and then have them shut down overnight, and you're left stranded wondering, well, how do you keep your business running? So that's an absolute legitimate concern. And I think along with that, there are really these kind of four buckets: privacy, security, availability, and performance, right? If I'm giving my data, handing it off to somebody else, how do I know that it's being looked after? How do I know that my privacy is being protected? How do I know that that provider isn't using that data in some sort of way that's violating my privacy? How do I know that they're keeping my data secure from other people maybe that are in that same cloud environment? What if my competitor, I think what a lot of people imagine is, what if my competitor has got some of their applications and data running on the exact same set of servers as I do? Are they going to be able to access my data then? So these are all real concerns and certainly things that small businesses need to look into carefully and need to address. I can say, though, that cloud services have come an awfully long way. You've got the major brands out there, such as Microsoft, Amazon, Salesforce, Google, that are investing huge amounts of money in making this work and making sure that they address all of the legitimate concerns that are out there to make sure that they have a viable product and service offering, and they're doing very well with it. More and more businesses are taking advantage of those services and having great success. So certainly things that you have to look into, but also I think at this point, things that should not be a showstopper for you in terms of looking into the options of investing in cloud computing for your business. All right, so next I want to talk about hybrid cloud computing, because this is something that I think a lot of people have not heard of. They've heard the words cloud computing, but probably not hybrid cloud computing. And hybrid cloud computing has a lot of benefits that address many of the concerns of small businesses in particular. And I do think that hybrid cloud computing is probably one of the best options for small businesses to consider. So let's talk about why that is and what this is. So hybrid cloud computing combines on-site hardware and software with hardware, software, and services in the cloud. So instead of putting all of your eggs in one basket and saying, hey, we're going to do everything in the cloud, what is very realistic, I think, for a lot of businesses is that you're going to have this combination of the two. A more traditional model where you have hardware and software located on site, but that it's connected up to services in the cloud to give you a lot of the benefits and capacity that the cloud provides. So in this type of situation, typically a small business is still looking for the benefits of the cloud. So they don't want that upfront capital investment. So what we're seeing more and more in the marketplace is that there are options for small businesses to get hardware and software, the on-site hardware and software, delivered as part of the monthly fee associated with the cloud services, not as a capital investment. So again, you're getting the benefits of cloud computing from a financial perspective, but you're still getting some of the benefits of local on-site hardware and software. So what are those benefits? Because having on-site hardware and software definitely still has some benefits, and I think it's primarily performance issues, right? A lot of small businesses still don't have the best bandwidth, right? The best internet connections. Those connections maybe are not as high speed as they'd like them to be, or maybe they're just not as reliable as you'd like them to be. So if you're doing everything in the cloud, you can experience some performance delays, right? You can sit there and wait for a website to reload, and that can take some time, and that can be very frustrating if everything that you're doing all day long is in the cloud. However, if you have some of that hardware and software, still on site, then some of those performance issues will be minimized. Now, the nice thing about this is that you still have the scalability of the cloud, right? These solutions, again, are connecting your local on-site hardware and software to services in the cloud, so that as locally you start to run out of, say, hard drive capacity, storage capacity, you can start to offload some of that data up into the cloud so that your capacity can still scale. Similarly, you may have processing power that you need locally that you're kind of hitting the max on. Well, maybe that you can offload some of the processing that's happening up into the cloud. So it's very technical stuff. It's really cool stuff. But I think the main point is that for small businesses to understand that, hey, this doesn't have to be an all or nothing proposition. You can get some of the benefits of on-site hardware and software, but still get the benefits of cloud computing. So again, I think that an option like this is going to be something that's very popular with small businesses, I think particularly for years to come, when our bandwidth may be still a little bit slower or shakier than we like. I think that this is going to be a real winner for most small businesses. So that's hybrid cloud computing. All right, so what we covered today, we covered a definition of cloud computing. Hopefully you get that now in the comparison to the electrical grid. We talked about the major benefits to you in small businesses. We talked about the risks and trade-offs that you need to be aware of. Which applications and services are best for use in the cloud? And how does cloud computing save you money, right? What are the financial benefits? And then finally, what is hybrid cloud computing and what are the benefits there? All right, so I hope that you got something good out of this presentation. Now, a lot of you I know will still have questions about, what exactly, how exactly can I use cloud computing? How can my small business take advantage of cloud computing specifically for us, right? What is a solution that can be tailored for us? And what we found is that the best way to answer that question is to do an assessment of your current technology, how you're using that technology, and again, look at, well, what are the opportunities to offload some of that to a cloud service that may give you better performance that you're experiencing, lower costs than you're experiencing, and maybe easier capacity changes, upgrade changes, dynamic access to additional capacity when you need it. And then what are the things that, you probably should keep in-house because you may not get the performance or the savings that you're looking for in a cloud solution. So as a special offer for joining us today, we'd like to offer a free cloud computing assessment to everybody here. It's a $499 value. You'll work with senior people on our team who will assess whether cloud computing is a good fit for your organization and will provide you with an analysis of the current solutions that may make logical sense for your business. We'll provide you with some of the risks and trade-offs that you'll need to be aware of and make those clear for you, and then give you specific strategies and recommendations for optimizing the cloud for your business. Okay, so that's a $499 value. It's a great service. I hope you can take advantage of it. That offer is valid until November 30th of 2011. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, please contact us at everonitsupport.com/cloud offer. There's a form there on that web page that you can go to and fill that out, and that will go directly to our team, who will then contact you to get an assessment scheduled. Or if you have any questions, you can always go to that form and fill it out there, or you can, as I said earlier, contact us at info@everonit.com, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have there. Okay, so that's a great offer. Again, I hope you can take advantage of it. I'm going to go ahead now and look at a couple of these questions here that I've received and answer some questions for you. I don't think that I'll get to all of them here. We will reach back out and get in touch with you and follow up with you on any of these. But there are a few here that I think I can answer quickly, and that would make good sense. So one of them, let's see here, says, you talked about backing up to the cloud. We currently have a tape backup system that we back up our data to, but we've had reliability issues with it, and we're wondering what options are there for us to back up to the cloud. It's a great question, and I'll tell you what, I think one of the most important things that's happened in the last few years for small businesses is that backup services and the technology around it have been completely revolutionized in my mind. It used to be that really tape backup was your only option. Now I think it's probably your worst option. Tape backup is very, very unreliable. It's expensive. It's difficult to manage. So the great news is that there are some wonderful solutions that take advantage of cloud computing and hybrid cloud computing to back up your data, make sure that you have a safe copy, and make sure that you have copies in other locations, right, in data centers around the country or around the world, so that if anything happens at your office, you know that you've got a safe copy of your data elsewhere. Not only are these services fantastic in terms of their performance, but they're oftentimes much less expensive than what you were doing with tape backup and the management associated with that. So definitely recommend that you get in touch with us or some other provider that can help you to evaluate those options, because there are some very good ones. Let's see here. Another question said, I've heard a lot about Google Apps and the savings, the cost savings that Google Apps can provide to small businesses. I think that is a good option for small businesses to consider. Yeah, I think that, for a lot of businesses, it is a good option to consider. I don't think that it's going to be the right option for everybody, because there are certainly limitations to it. And there are things that you can get from, a full version of like Microsoft Exchange that you're not going to get from Google Apps. But they are getting better and better all the time. So I think it is certainly something for you to consider. And, the price point is definitely right. I think Google Apps still has some free versions, and then if you're looking for certain versions, they have paid certain features. They have paid versions, but it's still quite inexpensive. So certainly something to consider and compare to a solution like Microsoft Exchange, so that you can get a good understanding of the pros and cons. All right. Let's see here. Last question is, it seems like, let's see here. What is it? We're using Salesforce.com, and we're also using a separate cloud-based project management system. It seems like it can begin to become, a little bit challenging in connecting all of these different services together. That's definitely a good point. So when you start to access various products and services in the cloud, I think one of the first things that can become a concern is, well, do I lose some of the data integration that I used to have in my local environment, right, when I had everything operating locally? Because there are some real benefits to having different applications kind of tied together and getting that data integration between them. So that's definitely something that should be considered in an evaluation of cloud services. The good news is that more and more of these major service providers are getting very good at creating interfaces that other applications can link into. So if you look at a company like Salesforce.com, they have an amazing number of applications that plug right into Salesforce, and that number is growing by leaps and bounds every day. So in most cases, I've found that you can find an application that will work perfectly well that will link up with the other applications out there that you're using. Not in all cases, but in many cases. And the good news is, if that does exist, you no longer have to do any sort of custom work to make sure that your applications are integrating, right? It's all handled by those cloud service providers and the API or the links that they have established to other service providers. So, not in all cases will you be able to get that same data integration, but again, I found that in most cases you can. All right, so those are 3 good questions. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. I do appreciate, again, everybody's time and sticking with us here today. And any unanswered questions, we will get in touch with you directly and see if we can provide some answers for you. And again, please take us up on this complimentary cloud computing assessment. Again, a $499 value where we can answer a lot of the questions and concerns that you may have about cloud computing and how it specifically applies to your business. Okay, thank you very much again for joining me here today, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.